Hello students, I welcome you all again. So today we will be discussing the concept of education chapter 1 part 3. I've already discussed with you the part 1 and part 2. So today we'll be discussing the part 3 of your chapter 1. Let's do a quick recap of what we have learned in the part 2. In your part 2, I think we have discussed the different examples of education. We have also discussed the synonyms for education. We have also discussed the different concepts of education. That is, under different concepts, we have 7 points. So we have also discussed about that. We have also discussed the different processes of education. That is, the education as a single polar process, education as a bipolar process, education as a tripolar process. So we have discussed about that. We have also discussed the narrow and the broader meaning of education. And we have also discussed the differences between literacy and education. So today, moving on, we will be discussing the nature of education, page number 23, that is the nature of education. Nature, in other words, means characteristics of education, okay? As the meaning of education is complex, you must have all by now understood that the meaning of education is very broad and is very complex. As the meaning of education is complex, so is the nature of education a very complex process. The nature of education is a lifelong process. I've been saying time and again, I've been saying now and then, I've been saying all this to you all, that education is a lifelong process. This very topic will be coming over this topic again and again, but the meaning is same, so you don't need to worry about that. So education is a lifelong process because every stages of an individual is important from educational point of view. It starts from your birth till the day you die. Point number 2, education is a systematic process. In your nature, or not in your nature, I think in the concept also we have discussed about this, that education is a systematic process means it follows a system and a pattern. It refers to transiting its activities through a systematic institution and regulation. Even in your curriculum, like even in your school, or even in your curriculum, or even the formal system of education, we don't just come and give our own concept or our own meaning or our own way. We don't follow our own way of teaching, but through a system and a process, through a set of through the set of procedures and the rules and regulations set by the institution, we carry according to that. So education is a systematic process. Education is development of an individual and the society. See, education does not only focuses on the individual aspect, okay, but it also focuses on the social aspect of an individual. It focuses on both the individual as well as the society. It is called a force for social development. Education is called a force for social development, which brings improvement in every aspect in the society. Education helps to bring improvement in every aspect of the society. Education is modification of behavior. Like the simplest and the shortest definition of education is change in behavior. Likewise, education is the modification of behavior to change or modify the behavior of a person in a positive way. Education is training. Human senses, mind, behavior, activities, skills are trained in a very constructive and socially desirable way. If there's a behavior, or if your character is unacceptable to the society or is unacceptable to your family members, if there's something, if the character that you often show to the people, or the behavior or the discipline that you show to the people is not acceptable to the society or the social environment, then so education, if that is not acceptable to the social environment, then education helps you to train yourself so that you are able to produce desirable character and desirable personality, which is very constructive and which is accepted by the society, or which is constructive and socially desirable way. It helps you to train you to produce your character and your behavior in a socially desirable way. Education is instruction and direction. It directs and instructs an individual to fulfill his desires for exhalation of his whole personality. For exhalation means for improvement of his whole personality. So education is instruction and direction. Education is life. See, I think life without education, I think, is very meaningless. Okay, we must have all seen that as you are born and as you have spent your initial stage at home, when you reach a certain stage, you are sent to the school to learn and receive education or to learn and receive knowledge. I think it happens in every family. So life without education is meaningless. Education is not preparation for life, but education is life itself. It is through education that you can change the face of the world. Every aspect and incidence needs education for its sound development and helps prepare and mold the individual to earn his livelihood. Education helps an individual. You are not just studying for the sake of studying, or you are not just receiving you are not just receiving knowledge and education. You are not just disciplining yourself for the sake of disciplining yourself, right? You are doing it for an aim. You are doing it for a goal. So education helps youth and individual for the wholesome development, and it also helps an individual to earn his livelihood. It helps us to build opinions. Education helps us to build opinions and have points of view of things in life. So education is life and life itself. Education is a continuous reconstruction of our experiences. Like I said, just one experiences doesn't make up education, but education is a continuous reconstruction of our experiences. Education reconstructs and remodels our experiences towards socially desirable way. Like I said, if the first experiences or if the first behavior is not socially acceptable, then it helps you to modify and reconstruct your behavior. It helps you to modify and reconstruct our experiences towards socially desirable way. Education is power and treasure. Education is a power and treasure. Means education is a treasure. It is a treasure. It is something that can never be robbed. Your money, your assets may be robbed, but education is a treasure that can never be robbed. The development of education and educational opportunity is built on creativity, tempered by knowledge and wisdom, gained through the experiences of learning. Man controls his environment and tries to adjust with his environment. This makes him different from other animals on the planet and makes him the supreme master on earth. So education helps you to reconstruct your behavior, adjust your behavior with the society, adjust your behavior with the social environment. So that ability to adjust with the environment makes you different from other animals on the planet, okay? It makes you a supreme master on earth. So education is a power and a treasure. Therefore, the role of education is countless for a perfect society and man. It is necessary for every society and nation to bring holistic happiness and prosperity to its individual. So I hope now you are aware, you have learned the characteristics of education. Moving on, let's look at the scope of education. Scope of education means the extent to which the subject can be explored. Okay, scope means the extent to which the subject can cover. So let's look at the scope of education. Scope means the opportunity or possibility to do or deal with something. Education has a wider meaning and application. Means the scope of education is very wide. It covers different concepts and different theories of learning. Number one is educational philosophy. See, under educational philosophy, the aims of education, the nature of education, the importance of education, the functions of education, all these are very old concepts but it is an essential part of education. Okay, all these concepts are very old but an essential part of education, which comes under the philosophy of education, which comes under educational philosophy. So educational philosophy covers aims of education, nature of education, importance of education, functions of education, etc. Number two is educational psychology. Let me just make it clear to all of you that educational psychology is the branch of psychology. Many people, I've come across that many people, they confuse psychology and educational psychology. So educational psychology is just a branch of psychology concerned with the scientific study of human beings. Educational psychology is not fully psychology. Psychology means the study of mind, right? So educational psychology helps, it is concerned with the scientific study of human learning. we don't study the whole concept of psychology, but educational psychology is just a branch of psychology. It is a multidisciplinary field concerned with the scientific study of memory, conceptual processes, and individual differences, and it helps in bringing new strategies and new ways for learning processes in humans. Educational psychology brings new concepts and new ways to study the behavior of a person, or the stage or the level in which human beings are learning. So as we human beings, we differ, even our looks are different, even our way of thinking are different, so our way of learning is also different. So educational psychology, it studies the individual differences and the extent to which an individual is able to learn. So educational psychology takes up different strategies and different ways to help a person to learn better in his or her manner. Okay, as individuals, we differ from one another, so our learning concepts or our way of learning also differs. So educational psychology is concerned with the scientific study of memory, and it is the scientific study of human learning. Let's look at the educational sociology. A child lives in the society, so it is very important to know about the society, the nature of society, the type of society, the interdependence, how the culture and the society, they are dependent on one another. So educational sociology helps to study the social factors that are caused by education. Let's look at the method of teaching. In ancient times, the pupils were passive listeners, but they actively participated with the teacher in the process of education. So the skill and proficiency of different teaching methods need to be developed. Like I said earlier, the syllabus keeps on changing, the curriculum keeps on changing its patterns. So does the method of teaching and learning. Okay, if the syllabus keeps on changing, or if the curriculum keeps on changing, the teacher does not stick with the old ways of learning, but we also try to come up with different ways to teach the students. We also try to come up with different concepts or different ways that we can utilize to teach the students. So the method of teaching also changes with the change in the curriculum or change in the syllabus. History of education. It is also important, not only educational psychology, sociology, and stuffs, but it is also important to know the background, the origin, the development, growth, and the aspects of the subject. Study, like in the history of education, we study the past and focuses on its educational concept. Okay, and also education in the ancient times, the method of education, the system of education in the ancient times and in the medieval period, it is very different from what it is now. So education, with the history of education, we try to compare and construct between the different methods, and we try to cope up with the modern way of teaching. Economics of education. This economics of education, it includes study of economic issues relating to education, including the demand for education, and for the growth of business and market, the world-class economical education is important for each of it. Now, the problems of education. Under the scope of education, we also cover the problems of education. These scopes includes like the problems of teaching, management of education, and also suggestions and remedies for it. Under the problems of education, we not only study the problems that is faced through the process of education, but we also like try to promote through the process of education. We also try to promote suggestion and remedies for that problem. Population education. Under the scope of education, we'll also be studying about the population education, means viewing the undesirable growth of population, and awareness is created through population education. In your initials, as you go to your higher classes, we will be having a chapter on population education as well. But this population education, I think, is very important. Okay, the human population is rising at a very speed rate, so population education is created, or population education is very important to make people aware the undesirable situations that is caused by overpopulation. Number 9 is environmental education. Ecological imbalance have drawn the attention of intelligence today. So looking at the environmental problems, study of environment education has great importance. Environmental education is also covered under the scope of education, since they are due to the rise in population, the economical imbalance is created, and it have drawn attention of intelligence today. The environment, as we all know, is very important. So through the process of environmental education, or the people are made aware of the importance of the environment and remedies to control or to minimize the population or to minimize the pollution. So environmental education also comes under scope of education. Now let's look at the last subtopic, that is education, necessity of life. Education is a necessity for an individual and a society. Education helps in living a better life. By now we have studied the concept, the nature, the scope, the characteristics, the different meaning of education. So by now we must have understood that education is a necessity for an individual and the society. Education helps in living a better life. There are many kinds of human needs. See, there are many kinds of human needs, like some are biological needs such as food, water. There are some social needs such as respect from society, being able to adjust with the society. There are also some psychological needs, means we give and take respect, etc. There are also some psychological needs, means one needs to be happy, to live a purposeful life. So there are many sources of fulfillment of these needs. Okay, like it is true education which gives him or her the knowledge on how to fulfill these needs, these psychological, these social needs, these biological needs. Education gives an idea to an individual on how to fulfill these needs. So education is a necessity for better, respectful and happy life. It is education which helps men to form proper attitude towards life. Education helps you to form proper attitude or proper perspective towards life. Education shows us the way by which we can solve the problems of life. Like I said earlier, it not only helps us to fulfill our needs, but it also shows us the way on how to solve different problems of life. Man can make his or her life successful with proper education and training. From the above, we have come to the conclusion that education is very important and necessity for both individual and the society. The great contribution of education, I think, lies in the making of life progressive, culture and civilized. So I think the great contribution of education lies in making life very progressive, making life cultured, and making an individual civilized society. Hence education is a necessity of life. With that, we have come to the end of our chapter 1, concept of education. I hope you have all understood and gained something from what I've discussed with you all through the 3 parts. And if there's any confusion or if there's any query that you want to clear, and then as we finish all the chapters and as we come for revision, we can discuss about that. So you can keep mark of what you haven't understood and what you have queries about. Yeah, so that's all, and I'll see you all in the next chapter. Thank you all.